thank you, Wolf. And thank you for being with us live once again this year. We all know how incredibly busy you are during this historic time, and we are very grateful that you are serving as our MC. Over 36 years, ICFJ has provided more than 150,000 journalists from 180 countries with valuable programs and resources, but we have never had a year like this one. As tragic as this pandemic has been, it would have been much worse if journalists had not fulfilled their vital role of providing audiences with accurate, life-saving news, and doing it while combating the spread of false information. Journalists truly are frontline heroes in this fight, and that's why we're calling our event A Tribute to Journalists 2020. ICFJ has been on the front lines too, the front lines of the effort to help journalists better cover the story of the century. Please watch this video, narrated by Dr. Max Gomez, a friend of ICFJ, who is the medical reporter for WCBS TV in New York.
Thank you, Joyce. You know, it is a pleasure to participate in this tribute to journalists. At CBS 2 in New York, I've been reporting virtually full-time on the coronavirus pandemic, although most of the stories I'm filing are from my improvised home studio. The COVID-19 pandemic, which has spread out of control and has claimed more than 750,000 lives, has created a challenging and dangerous new frontier for journalists. When the world knew very little about this rampant killer, the International Center for Journalists stepped up, leading the way for reporters around the world to produce high-quality stories. As soon as the scope of the pandemic became clear, ICFJ launched the Global Health Crisis Reporting Forum to bring desperately needed health expertise and knowledgeable sources to reporters around the world. ICFJ launched webinars, first in English.
Only a level of immunity in the population will keep the spread down to a reasonable level.
Then in Arabic, Portuguese, French, and Spanish. Nearly 8,000 journalists have participated. Thousands more are watching the webinars on YouTube.
This is Darling Clinic on 107.3 Darling FM. You are welcome.
Chidera Rose Kamil Anake hosts a radio show in Nigeria.
Experts say we are already experiencing community transmission.
Through the forum, Anake was able to talk to experts around the world to understand how other countries are combating COVID.
It gave me a global perspective, and my listeners a global perspective of how other countries were handling the COVID-19 pandemic.
In Cuba, where independent sources for news are rare, Elane Diaz and her team at Periodismo de Barrio relied on ICFJ's webinars to access specialized sources and ask questions.
We were able to ask questions and receive answers in real time. That improved our coverage a lot.
Gina Moore also relied on the forum when she wrote an article for The New Yorker showing how African nations are teaching the West how to fight the coronavirus.
There was a special attention to women experts and experts of color, not just the usual scientists that we call from all of the institutions in London, Washington, and New York.
To fill the need for reliable information, ICFJ's International Journalists Network also produced more than 350 tip sheets and reporting guides in multiple languages. The COVID-19 pandemic is the story of a lifetime for many journalists, and during the greatest health threat of this generation, ICFJ is giving journalists the tools they need to deliver stories that can save lives.
And that's not all we're doing. In a major global study with Columbia University's Tao Center for Digital Journalism, we surveyed over 2,000 journalists in 7 languages about the impact of the pandemic on our profession. The findings will guide the leaders and supporters of our field to ensure that journalism thrives in the challenging environment that we face. ICFJ knows that it takes a journalist to change the world. It takes a journalist to expose disinformation and steer people away from phony cures. It takes a journalist to investigate corrupt leaders who are taking advantage of the crisis. It takes a journalist to highlight inequities and bring desperately needed resources to vulnerable communities.